Hello, welcome to an episode of me. I don't know. We'll call it that for now, I'm not sure. But, so right now I have some very good friends, and one in particular would like to share a story. And, Koen, would you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Koen. Um, so I was just going to get into this. Um, so with perceptions, um, all throughout my life, I've had people come to me and tell me, "Oh, you're so happy," and "Oh, you just have this light about you," and "You're so real." You seem like such a genuine person, and you just make me feel so good to be around you. And it's this perception that people have of me. And whenever they tell me this, like, yes, I love it because it's a compliment, and I know that they're being vulnerable with me, and I say thank you. And I try to go through my life doing that with others. I try to compliment them and see the beauty that they hold in themselves, showing a little bit of vulnerability with others. And then I look at myself and I think, wow, so these people see this in me. And when I was living in Oregon, so for about 5 years of my life, I was really struggling. And people were still saying this about me, that they saw this in me and they perceived this. So when I was in these places in my own head, I called it my wild horses. So I would get wrapped up inside of myself, and these horses would come out in my mind, and on them, their saddles, would be my insecurities about myself, or these negative energy that I would just hold, and these horses would just be running, and their eyes would be rolling, and they would just be stomping on this pasture, which was me. And in this pasture, I grew my seeds of love and the conditioning that I wanted inside of myself. So there would be lavender bushes, and there would be sage, and there would be wild roses and wild flowers. And these horses would come out, and they would be galloping at full speed. And sometimes there would be 10, 20, 30, 100 horses just galloping through my sanctuary with their hooves digging my lavender into the ground and my sage. And this would happen for hours, minutes, years, months. And it was happening so gradually, I didn't really notice that my field was all dirt. And these horses were just continuously going. And when this was happening, I just kept telling myself, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I'm good. Other people have it worse than me. This isn't that bad. And that was the conditioning that I was putting in the ground. I had blackberry vines with thorns, just invasive. And it was choking out all of my willow trees, and it was choking out all of my sage and my wildflowers. My whole field was just filled with these blackberries and these horses. And it took me going to therapy and filling out this questionnaire that said how anxious and how depressed you were, and for my therapist to look at me and tell me, you are severely anxious and severely depressed, for me to really open my eyes and see my meadow that was full of these blackberries and these horses. And when I finally saw this, and when I finally said, wow, I'm not okay, I'm not fine, I am struggling, I do have it bad, for me to start picking up the shovel and the rakes and asking friends for seeds, and for me to allow the sunshine back on the meadow, and to really just start working on my sanctuary again. And when I moved back to Minnesota, I spent about a year really relaxing and figuring out how to tame these wild horses. And don't get me wrong, the wild horses are still there. They still come out. They still run around. And when they are in my meadow that is full of apple trees and pear trees and my willow trees and my blueberry bushes and strawberry bushes and my zucchinis and my pumpkins and my wildflowers, when these horses come out and they're carrying on their backs with the saddles all my insecurities, now it's only one horse or two horses or three. And when they come out, now there's paths for them to take. Now I have other friends in the field, wolves and cats and bobcats and yetis, that are able to take the horses and calm them down and let the horses' eyes go back to normal and stop rolling. And then they gently allow the horses to stop running. And when the horses are just walking, they go and they take off the saddles very gently, and they put the saddles back into the barn, and they allow the horses to just walk around without all the weight on their back, in the sunshine or in the rain. It's my sanctuary, and the boundaries that I have placed around that in these fences have also kept out other invasive species. And it's definitely a learning curve, and there's definitely still some blackberry bushes that try to come in. But all these friends and I, we check in on the garden. We make sure that the meadow is doing well. We make sure that we pick those zucchinis and we share them. Thank you.
Thank you, Koen. That was very beautiful. Thanks for being able to open up and to share that. And thanks for being the first person. And I'm very, very happy that you were able to experience for yourself what was working for you and what was not, and to be able to see you for who you were and to accept that and to be able to not just compare yourself with others and seeing that, oh, well, they have it worse than I do, so I'm doing okay. And I think a lot of people do that where they kind of justify not feeling so well within themselves. But you were able to look inside yourself and know that you weren't doing so well and that you deserve to feel better than what you did, no matter if there were people that were worse off or not. But you can only take your life for what it is for you. And so that's what I heard in your story, is that was the first step, and to be able to recognize that there are parts that you are still working on, or that are still things that come up that maybe want to intrude, but that you are able to recognize that within yourself because you've taken that time to be able to understand yourself and to know what's best for you. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with, like, how do you combat those invasive species, and like what was your process of being able to now, with what you know, to be able to share with anyone, what's helped you, what different tools of being able to, I don't know, self-acceptance, if you want to talk about that some more, or the good and the bad, and being able to see the beauty within yourself. And is there anything like that you can share with someone that maybe isn't at that spot yet, that's helped you? What tools that you have now?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I have found in myself is being vulnerable with me, really looking in the mirror with myself and asking how I'm doing, and accepting it gently. When I have feelings of anger or sadness, just having a list of all the things that make me really happy and looking on that list and realizing, okay, this is going to pass. This isn't going to be forever. I am having a lot of really intense emotions, and in this state, I need to be gentle with myself. And sometimes it also takes reaching out to others. And that can be as simple as calling a hotline, like a suicide hotline, or going on the internet and just doing a quick look at, like, maybe a chat room or a forum where you can talk to somebody about how you're feeling. That has been really, really vulnerable. Like, that's been amazing for me. And especially if you don't have anybody in your life that you feel that connection with. Or if you're scared, I mean, there's some feelings that people have inside of themselves that they don't know how to really explain them. And that just calling like one of those like hotlines, especially like the suicide hotline, and just like talking it out with somebody. They can also refer you to other forums in your neighborhood or area where you can like reach out to somebody who can really listen. I mean, that's where I find myself, is listening and finding people that can listen. Also making lists when I'm feeling happy of the things that make me happy. So like activities that I can do when I'm feeling sad. Like I can write, or I can draw a picture, or I can go on a walk, or I can take a bubble bath. I can make my favorite smoothie. I can make my favorite dish, whether that be mac and cheese or a bowl of cereal. put on one of my favorite songs, take out a blanket that I really love and just snuggle in that. Have like a special doll that I go and I hold when I'm feeling sad or when I'm feeling angry, a special rock that I can go and hold. It's all these little things that when I'm feeling happy, I just kind of take for granted. So definitely writing down some of these things when I'm not in such a state really helps. So yeah, that's what.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I think those are exceptional tools. I'm glad that you found those, and thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for sharing what's helped you. And so Koen, I have another question for you about how you started your sharing with talking about perceptions and how people see you as happy-go-lucky and always having so much joyful life within you, but you didn't necessarily feel that way inside. And so how do you feel now with all the work that you've done when people say the same thing to you about that you're happy-go-lucky and joyful inside? Can you just share like what it was like before and what it's like now when you hear that same compliment of a perception that people have of you?
So when I was in Oregon, when people would say that to me, and when they would say that I have such a light inside of me, when I was about 12 or 13, I made the conscious choice to be happy because I had some very traumatic events happen. And I was like, well, I need to be happy. So there were points in my life, especially in Oregon, where I felt like I was being dishonest in how happy I looked and how just like joyous I was. Because that wasn't how I felt when I was alone. I mean, the whole time that I was in there, I did have these wild horses. There were points where I was happy, where there was little shining lights, but yeah, it felt fake. It felt like, and the people that were saying these things were really close to me. So it also hurt that I couldn't share with them, like, no, I'm actually doing really, really bad. I couldn't even share that with myself. I didn't even know that within me. I just knew that it wasn't ringing the right bell. So when people say that now, sometimes I think about Oregon, and I really think about others who I perceive as being, like, just how I perceive people in general. Because there could be one face that people see, but then there's a completely different one that's underneath. So when people say that about me now, I mean, it makes me feel really good inside, because to give a compliment in my eyes is to be vulnerable with the other person. So for them to say that to me, it makes me really happy that they could share that vulnerability. And then for me to be vulnerable with others and let them know how I really feel about them, that's also a gift. And I just hope that others can really know that if they need support from me, to ask, and in whatever way that I can help, I will try to do that. And in whatever need that they need, that I'll try to try to be there for them, whether that is giving them resources or lending them an ear or a hug or just being around them. Like, the people in my life right now I really cherish, and I definitely mean it when I say that I will give support in the way that I can. And I feel very grateful that I have some really beautiful people around me, and it means a lot, because that was something that I was looking for last year. When I moved here, I needed new connections with people that were growing in themselves and would want to be there with me growing. And yeah, that's it.
All right, thanks for sharing that part about perception. I think that it's helpful to come full circle and understand your story a bit better.